Hello and welcome to Big Little Live in partnership with Buick. I'm Amanda Dobbins from The Ringer. This is Mina from ESPN. We are here to talk about the American legal system, I guess, because this is a courtroom drama now. Yeah.
Yes, Big Little Lies, Law and Order.
Yes.
Right, or Law and Order BLL,
it is sort of.
I guess, yeah.
We're here to talk about episode 6 of Big Little Lies, the penultimate episode. We got one more. It's called The Bad Mother, which is an apt theme. Yeah. And I think, we were anticipating an episode like this, right? We knew that there was going to be one episode with some darker moments, some heavier scenes. And, there have been that throughout the season. This had a lot of them, but I think you and I both felt it ended on an end note. How are you feeling about those last, 30 seconds?
They were so necessary.
Celeste back!
To feed my soul.
Yes.
And it's not just, we finally saw that spirited lawyer Celeste that we saw in season 1, or a hint of it. She hasn't obviously, prosecuted her or whatever.
But she's throwing around the jargon. She's like, I'd like to petition and something,
Yes, I enjoyed that very much. But also it was deeply satisfying, Amanda, because nobody has stood up to Mary Louise. I mean, yes, Madeleine has pushed back a little bit, but over the last few episodes, it feels like this woman is doing whatever the hell she wants.
Completely unchecked.
She's completely unchecked. Even in verbal arguments, like with Renata in the previous episode, we don't even get to see Renata get a word in. That happened in this episode with Jane, where she's pushing on the door and she just shoves her out and plays the music. Nobody has questioned her. Nobody has put her on the stand.
Right.
Until potentially in this final episode.
And that's clearly where it's leading. The final shot is of Meryl Streep doing. We're going to talk about Meryl Streep's performance. I know I started the run of the show being this is the greatest Meryl Streep performance of all time. I would like to amend that. It's the most Meryl Streep performance of all time, maybe. We can talk more about it. But that last shot of her just looking like she knows what's coming and she's also really pissed about it and that her plan is kind of unraveling is really great stuff and really vindicating after the ups and downs. Oh, what was the scarf? Of course. I'm sorry, I forgot. Mina's scarf watch, everybody. Here we go.
So, for those who haven't watched, I have a theory that she communicates through her scarves, or they're thematically relevant, perhaps. And she was wearing a very uncharacteristic red scarf. It was all red.
What does that mean?
Well, maybe it means that they're finally going to draw blood. I don't know.
Wow.
Or danger or something.
Love it.
I'm just saying, she's been wearing animal prints, ocean themes.
Dissertation on these scarves.
When she wants to make peace, they're flowery scarves. This was all red. And she looks shook.
Yes, she does.
She looks shook.
She might be one of the aforementioned bad mothers in the title. All right, let's talk about it. We mentioned there's a lot of stuff that happened before this episode and before those last 3 minutes. So we'll get into it. Let's do the Monterey Top 5, which is when we go through the episode character by character. We talk about what happens. I want to move briefly. We'll come back to Celeste and Mary Louise. We'll basically spend the whole time talking about them. But I would like to talk about Jane. Okay. And really, I'd like to talk about Corey. Let's talk about Corey a little, okay? Because what we learn immediately is that Bonnie definitely told Jane, and Jane goes to talk to him.
Right. And also, by the way, we learned that Bonnie did not go to, unless we're being misled, that she did not go into the police station.
Correct.
After seeing Corey walking out at the end of the prior episode. We had a long discussion. Is he a cop? Isn't he a cop? Why was he in the police station? It's answered, perhaps not, immediately. Jane finds out. She's listening to the loud music. She goes straight to his house. She asks him, so are you a cop or what? He denies it. He says, no, they called me in, ordered me in for questioning.
But this is the crucial information. He says that Quinlan ordered him in, and he indicates that Quinlan is very much still on the case, and that she says, I believe it's something like that there are 5 witnesses. It's in my favor.
Yes, the odds are in our favor that someone's going to crack.
Yes. And she knows everything about Jane's history with Perry. She knows everything about Ziggy. He's like, Jane, she knows all of it.
He also said that not only the odds are in in Quinlan's favor that one of the 5 will crack, but that person will get a break.
Yes.
He said that, which...
Yeah, we'll come back to it. I will say, though, I think that we should just kind of establish here, neither Mina or I are licensed lawyers or legal experts of any kind, so we're just going to be guessing here.
Yes.
I don't know whether you can be ordered to talk to a cop in that situation.
Oh, interesting. Well, he said more
I had some questions.
I mean, listen, he said more like ordered, and my feeling is I would probably go in. I mean, you'd feel pressured and nervous. You also might want to hire your own lawyer if that was the case.
Right.
Obviously, he knew he wasn't a suspect. We can't rule out that he's still a cop.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he would be blatantly lying to her.
And that's important. I think we should talk about the rest of kind of their interactions in the episode where he's apologetic, but it's also clear that he definitely talked to Quinlan.
Yes.
And then...
And he feels guilty.
And Jane is essentially like,
said.
no more. And then he spends the rest of the episode just kind of violating her privacy and trying to get in with her, and he's bothering her at work. Jane still does work, apparently.
Yes.
Yeah, they're at the aquarium. She has a vest and everything
Yes.
with a name tag. And she's on the beach with Ziggy, and he shows up, which I'm not a fan of. That's violating boundaries.
Right.
And that's not great to do with someone who's been through what Jane has been through.
I agree with you. I don't think that's his role in the show. I first of all, I don't think he's a cop. I think the fact that he went to her and said, Quinlan's offering a plea deal, that person's getting a break, it is something an undercover cop might say to try to push someone to confess. I don't think he is, just for the reasons we kind of talked about in the last episode, like he almost had sex with her. Like, I just don't think he is.
Yeah.
I think the show, his role in this show, because her storyline is really him at this point. Like, their relationship has become, first it is about her healing and moving on, but I think he is supposed to be like an agent in terms of her healing process. I think they want him to be the good guy. Like, it's no coincidence, she's in the water, which, as we know in the show, is danger. He's on the shore trying to get her to come to him. I feel like that's the purpose he's serving. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it, because I agree with you in terms of how he's doing it. But I think that they're going to, like, I'm not saying they're going to end up together, but I think that's the happy outcome for her.
I don't trust him. That's what I have to say. I continue to not to trust him. And we can, we'll discuss more of it. Let's keep going through the Monterey top 5. We're going to talk about Madeleine next. We can drive through this. I found the final scene very charming, right? With the
wedding dress.
With the wedding dress. And it seems she puts on her old wedding dress and they're dancing around to, I think it was Tears for Fears, and then they're happy now. That's great. We should talk about what happens with Madeleine and Ed before that.
Yes.
Because it's really it's definitely the funniest part in this show. Would you like to talk about it?
Well, it happens with Ed more than Madeleine. So, yes, at the end of the prior episode, if you guys forgot, Ed's at a bar. Tori, the wife of the theater director who Madeleine had an affair with, walks out to him.
Joseph is, I think, his
Joseph
name?
is his name, propositions him. But poor Joseph, really not a lot of screen time in this season. Only sitting at that table, I guess, approving of she propositions him. We don't see what Ed says. Now, in this episode, we see them having coffee or something.
They're at a Starbucks,
And Tori tells him that he is in both her masturbation diary and her bucket list.
Incredible
two separate
stuff.
Lists.
Is one conscious and the other kind of...
I actually think it's meant to be a commentary on what's come between him and Madeleine, because Madeleine, which is this whole...
Sure, I'm trying to understand the division between the bucket list and the masturbation diary. I would just like to know the logistics of how that's worked. Apparently it's all at the advice of her therapist.
Do you think it's like a spreadsheet or like a Google Doc?
Great question.
Google Docs?
I think I was imagining something handwritten, but I don't just...
It just has lying around. Or maybe like one of those like refrigerator.
Well, I think if you have it in a journal, then it's easier to just like leave it lying around for her husband to find.
Yeah, we'll get to
which is seems to be part of the motivation here. She's talking about it being like revenge and as well as something that she wants for herself.
Right, and when she says, I think she references her therapist saying like, this is about you like showing yourself that you're not going to be pushed around, right? And so like obviously both, we don't know her storyline with Joseph, but the Madeleine and Ed storyline is how do you move on from something like this? Can you move on from something like this? Should you be together in the first place? She is dealing with it in a very different way from him. I mean, and it's implied that he's not going to take her up. He looks kind of bemused, I suppose, throughout the meeting.
Correct. He's laughing by the end.
Yeah.
And I think he's like thinking about it, and then he goes home and has the conversations with Madeleine, and that seems to make him realize that the way that he's dealing with it is different from Tori and her therapist and her masturbation diary.
Well, I mean, so he says, and let's kind of wrap it. Earlier he says, you can't just wave a wand and make the affair go away. At the end, Reese is dancing in her wedding dress, music's playing, and he says, you can't wave a wand, but that came pretty close. What do you think about that? Like, do you believe him? What do you think it was about that image or that moment that like potentially could repair their relationship?
I am biased, as we have discussed. I thought it was transcendent Reese Witherspoon performance. I mean, it's a pretty hard imagine it on the page and you're just like wearing a wedding dress, and what she explains is a pretty straightforward dialogue. She was like, well, I was cleaning out my closet, then I put this on, and she's explaining a lot of feelings, but in a really open, matter of fact, off the top of your head sort of way, which is what makes the scene work, but it requires a certain level of actress to deliver it. And so it's so charming that I think you are meant to see it as a positive resolution.
Totally.
Between them, in part because I think it's really it's the opposite side of the Renata and Gordon plot line in a lot of ways, which I think that we should just move along to, because we can so this is Monterey Top 5, and we'll do Renata at this point, and we can talk about both of their marriages.
Yeah. No, I just want to say quickly on Madeleine. I agree with you, and it really was, I thought, a contrast from the previous week when she gives a speech in the car, and we were talking about how it didn't strike us right. It felt like she still was kind of not being honest with herself. This, to me, felt like the most honest moment she's had in the entire, aside from the equally transcendent Rainbow Connection speech. It felt like we were finally seeing her be honest with herself and how she felt.
Yeah.
And yes, their relationship isn't like passionate and he's not on her masturbation diary, he's on her bucket list maybe. I don't know. That's not a dichotomy that anyone should live by, but it kind of felt like she was like, actually like, I want to be this person. This is who I am. And it wasn't a show. It was something she was genuinely just doing. He stumbled upon. And I think that was really important to him to like finally believe that she actually wants to be with him.
Sure. Though flip side, there's an episode left. So I'm dubious of anything that's like resolved in the episode before the final episode, because there's like a next step. But I do really think it was interesting to watch that this happened side by side with Renata stuff. So I think we should move on to Renata, who
I'm so upset.
Is mad and yells a lot about keeping secrets and stuff. And I want to talk about her flashback, but first we should talk about the bankruptcy hearing. And we should talk about how she learns that in addition to everything else that Gordon has been doing, he has also been managing his stress with the nanny, with Juliet, who's been with them for 6 years.
$170,000, I think, is how much she wanted for the stress management.
In addition to the $72,000 for severance.
So when this happened, when Juliet, the nanny, stands up and you see Renata realize her husband's been, cheating on her. And there's this great, she gets in the car and it's, I don't want to hear one word from your effing twerp mouth as she stuffs tissue into it. Okay, so we get, when this happened in the show, I was really annoyed at first, because it just felt so cliche. And, like, yes, of course, the crappy husband is cheating with the nanny, and it's like yet another thing. And it just kind of bothered me, because I actually kind of liked the fact that, like, this guy's really messed up, but he has some fealty to her, and that's interesting.
You just really love Gordon.
And I also just really love Gordon. Guys know I'm Gordon Hive. But the more I thought about it, I think I understand why this was sort of what happened. Like, to me, clearly, like, the Renata storyline in some ways, or like the lie or whatever she's been, has been kind of working towards this moment of her realizing, like, you remember a few episodes ago when she says women stay as what we do. To her getting away from that, and I think going out on her own. So I feel like this was finally the thing that can like push her to do that, even if I found it to be a little bit cliche.
It is a little cliche. I think also, and I do wonder a little, I think someone in Renata's position probably would have left before this revelation. So 6 years is a very long time for the person to be in your house. I'm just pointing that out.
Right.
But I do agree with you that they are clearly setting up again. Like I said, there's one more episode, and she will be the one who finds some sort of self-determination outside of this marriage. Or at least I think so. Maybe not, which would be depressing. But possibly also realistic. She seems pretty mad, though.
She does seem mad. Her whole thing this whole time has been her whole like backstory, I guess, or motivation as a character. Like, what has been wanting to give her daughter the life she didn't have.
Right.
And there's been hints that we don't know the actual. We'll never probably find out the real Renata Klein. Sadly, can we have that spin-off, please? But I think that she's going to realize she can do that. She can do it better without Gordon. Yes. That would be a satisfying resolution for the character for me.
Yes. We should also just briefly talk about, it's her flashback, and I've been obsessed with these flashbacks ever since our colleague Amelia pointed out that they do seem to be slightly different depending on whose memory they are. And this is, I think, from her perspective, and she is very clearly yelling, nobody did this. Nobody did this. Which we kind of saw last week, but and then she yells for an ambulance. But it would suggest that Renata had more of a staging in The Secret than perhaps we originally understood.
They kind of all have, right? Like, that's what we're learning is in the beginning, at the very beginning of the series, it just seemed like kind of Madeleine was the only person who was like, okay, guys, let's have this lie. But now, as these flashbacks have shown us, like everyone's relationship with what happened is a little bit more complicated than we thought.
Yes. Speaking of complicated relationships, I think it's time to talk about Bonnie. This is the Monterey Top 5, if you're just joining us. This is Big Little Live in partnership with Buick, and we are going through the episode character by character, and we have the 2 big ones left. So this was a devastating episode for Bonnie, or a devastating scene, and kind of a possibly frustrating rest of the episode in terms of what they do with the character. You and I have been talking about how we're not the most comfortable with the mystic,
don't like that
crystal aspect of what they were doing with Bonnie and her character and her mother.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of visions that are Bonnie visions in this episode.
Yes.
And they're kind of, I mean, are they visions or are they just
like dreams or?
I mean, you daydream, you have impulses, you have things. They're focusing on her interior monologue for
They're fantasies, really. And by the way, fantasy is the word that came to my mind. I was thinking about a couple episodes ago, like the kill me thing. Mm-hmm. That was a fantasy, I think now, clearly.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I think so. Because like there's all of these moments, it's her in the courtroom, it's her being interrogated.
Right.
You watch them and you're like, whoa, she's confessing. And you're like, oh no, she's fantasizing about that. Or these moments with her mother. There's many, she has many fantasies over the course of this episode and the prior one about like things she would say to her, things the mother says to her, interactions that they're obviously not having. I really think it's probably like something she imagined. Because she wants, clearly as we find out, because she says she wants to kill her.
Can we kill her? And then when the doctor's like, absolutely not, she's like, you do it for a dog.
Oh my God.
Which was really intense. Though she makes the point, she clearly doesn't want to live like this. It didn't occur to me that the kill me was in Bonnie's head, just because of also in last episode, I believe, Bonnie's dad is like, she said something to me as well.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe she actually was. But you're right, we don't really have any. They're shifting the timelines and what's real and what's not a lot.
Honestly, like I wrote down all of her scenes and I was trying to like figure out which ones really happened, which ones didn't.
So do you think that the big confession scene happened?
I do. I think that one happened. So at the very end of the episode, Bonnie, who has spent various other parts of the episode writing out what happened in her little notebook.
We'll talk about that.
The mom is still, comatose, and she gives her this big speech about why it's like, I resent you for this, I resent you for that. And she outlines the abusive relationship, the ways in which the mother abused her, for making me feel...
And the effects that it had on her.
Yes, for making me feel so worthless I settled for a man I don't love, which is something...
Well, she doesn't say, she says, I don't, and then she stops talking.
Oh, snap.
I noticed that too, because I was like, don't what?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I mean, I would have filled in love as well.
But the fact that
maybe it doesn't matter.
Well, no, I think the fact that she couldn't bring herself to say that probably does matter. But and then it ends with, I resent you for killing a man.
Right.
Because
and then she yells, I killed a man.
I killed him, but I was pushing you, right? So it was like, this transitive thing. But yes, it is a confession to the mother.
And there are 2 things to note about it. Number one, I should just say we've been talking all season about how one of the things this season had to do was like develop Bonnie's character.
Yeah.
And I don't think either of us has been thrilled with all aspects of it, but this scene definitely counts as character development. I thought Zoe Kravitz did a really beautiful and like heartbreaking performance in delivering it. And they told us who that character was, like pretty straightforward. In fact, they literally wrote it out in a journal and had her read it. But in terms of things that they needed to do, they did this.
Yes.
I'm concerned that it's all written down. I just there's a paper trail and I don't feel good about it. As Madeleine said in one of the first episodes, you can't just put that stuff in Gmail, and you also can't put it down. And then we should also note in the very last shot after Zoe Kravitz, because this beautiful performance, they do a side shot and Elizabeth, Bonnie's mother, is unresponsive, but you can see a single tear, which would suggest that she can hear everything that Bonnie's saying, which... I mean, that's complicated in terms of her health and what you're going to do in care-wise, but also it means that she confessed and she can hear you. Yeah, she can hear you.
That's interesting. I think, everything you're saying about the character and Zoe Kravitz, I totally agree with. I do think they want us to recognize that these confessions are out there. There's a scene where Nathan picks up the notebook. I don't know if you caught that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Nathan could very well read that himself. And honestly, wouldn't it just be so perfect if idiot Nathan was the one who went to the cops and like got everyone in trouble? Like, it just seems like such a perfect ending for his character. But I do think they're raising the possibility. Like, so, like, if the episode begins with Corey saying they just need one of you five to crack, Bonnie, from the beginning, has been the one, and it's kind of why I think it won't happen, actually, because I think they're trying to kind of lead us down.
Right.
And I actually think they were really teasing Madeleine being pushed to the edge in this episode. You know, the part where she has to keep the secret from Ed, and it's actually causing problems in the relationship. She tells Renata, I want to tell him, and Renata says it's an effing pact.
Renata's just yelling, it's an effing pact.
Which is amazing. But
don't you say that he leads with truth and honesty? Just like, what if he leads with that? Great stuff.
Amazing. So I do think that they're definitely teasing Bonnie has put these breadcrumbs out in the world, whether or not it'll like materialize into anything, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, we can talk more about that. I think we've come this far in the Monterey Five without talking about Celeste, but it's time to talk about Celeste. We knew this was coming in a lot of ways, right? We knew that that Celeste was having problems and that there would be some sort of reckoning. We kind of had a sense last week that there was going to be a custody hearing. And we had some questions about certain aspects of her life that haven't been shown yet. And we got answers in what was a brutal and, again, we're not legal experts, but we had some legal questions about some aspects of the hearing as well. So Celeste is put on trial, and she is first interviewed, questioned by Mary Louise's lawyer. And that does not go well.
Who seems way better than her lawyer.
Yes, that's true. He's at least been to court before and like knows what to do.
Well, you know what really frustrated me? Okay, so I have heard from people who watch the show and know more about the law than us, I guess, that you can do that. I was like, he can't say that stuff to her. And people are like, no, actually you can.
I think you can.
It does call, so.
I mean, what he said was horrible. They were slut-shaming her. And it was, troubling information was presented in a way that did not express concern for Celeste at all. How about that?
Yes, he was asking her, about the domestic violence, were you aroused by it? Kind of just calling into question her mind state. And also then does this slideshow of secret PI photos of the various men she's had one-night stands with. My biggest objection is there's no way that many hot guys live in Monterey. It was like a CW show. There were like 10 guys. They were all unbelievably hot. So, okay.
I think there were probably 10 hot guys the Monterey area.
I don't know.
I don't know.
And she found them all?
It's a local like hotspot. Maybe people are coming in their way through town. I don't know.
I'm calling BS on that.
Okay.
But also, she's shook by it. Then his second piece of visual evidence is a computer simulation.
Yeah, this part I don't actually think is. That seems specious. Again, no law degree.
It's another crime.
None at all. So, and I was just like, I don't know that this would be admitted as legal evidence.
We'll get to that.
If you're an actual lawyer, please let us know.
We have a legal expert, not really, guest joining us.
Please don't take our legal advice
a little bit later in the show.
We want more for you.
But setting aside that stuff, I think what frustrated me about it wasn't just that he was asking her, but that she seemed utterly unprepared for it.
Yeah.
Like, how does she not think he's gonna go to her sex life? The only possibility is that she didn't tell her own lawyer about any of it because, she mentioned later when she was put on the stand, she found it embarrassing to reveal why she didn't tell the therapist. But she seemed like completely unprepared for any of the questions.
I think it's probably true that she didn't tell her lawyer. They don't seem to have a warm relationship. It's not trusting. And then I do think it's also, we have been wondering where like lawyer Celeste is. And clearly this is a person who is going through grief and having problems. And she even says that herself in the second day on stand.
Right. So
on the stand, which I think, she gets called back and she's questioned by her own lawyer. And again, I thought that was a pretty tremendous acting by Nicole Kidman.
God.
Just painting a picture of what it is like to talk about your abuse. And it's natural and very hard and like really thoughtful. And
so good.
So it's very impressive. And she says, I'm not doing well, but I think we've also just been like, the lawyer, the ambitious, the together person that we knew even in the first season when she was also going through some stuff,
which is
crazy
gone now in retrospect.
Yeah,
that when she was being abused, she held it together in the public more easily, or not more easily, but she had this kind of picture perfect presence. And the judge asks her, "Why did you stay?" Because the judge is like, I know about domestic violence. I know women stay. She's familiar with sort of the nuances of that, but she asks her why, and Celeste says, "I stayed to survive," which obviously is a theme of the show. Why do women stay? What are there good and bad reasons why they stay? Like all of these women, right? And they're not all the same. With Renata or Madeleine or Bonnie, we're learning that the reasons why they're in these marriages or these relationships are very diverse. Some of them should stay in them. Some of them should not. Corey, I guess.
Right.
And Jane. Shout out to Corey. But when she said that, man, my heart just broke watching her.
Yeah, it was really tremendous. And I do think that there have been some mixed reviews about how Celeste has been handled this season. I mean, it did become tough to watch, and I think that a lot of people's reactions to this episode would be really tough to watch. It's kind of like not the fun, fizzy Sunday night that I was hoping for. But I thought that that second day scene was pretty extraordinary. Yeah. And then I thought the payoff of it, which is when apparently overnight Celeste, whatever happens that Celeste needs to channel her old self, it happens, and she shows up in the last 30 seconds and it's game on. And that was exhilarating.
Yeah, completely. I mean, so the title of the episode is The Bad Mother, right? And this is obviously, Celeste is the titular, like this whole episode is a referendum on her as a mother. Are you fit to be a mother?
Right.
And for her to like finally at the end turn that back on Mary Louise, which has not come into question the entire season, despite the fact that she raised
strategy.
I don't know. I don't know. How did her lawyer not think? It's like, oh right, this man I live with, the monster in my house that we've been talking about, you were his mother, and now, and this whole show, right, we're constantly talking about the ways in which children are impacted by their parents.
Sure.
And one of the reasons she left was she didn't want her sons to be like Perry, and it's like, you're gonna let the woman who raised this monster raise my kids? It's weird to me that amidst the outrage of Mary Louise coming in to take her children away, that didn't come up before
I agree with you. I have to say that I was not impressed by the legal system as portrayed in this particular episode.
Or her lawyer. Gosh.
Or her lawyer. But I mean, like, her lawyer is basically done. Because at the end, she says, it's important that this is my fight, Your Honor, and I would like you to let me fight it.
I don't think this is a good idea.
Which is great. And her lawyer clearly has no clue that this is happening.
She's like, don't do this. She's like, get out.
Yeah.
She didn't say that, but.
It's very exciting. It also sets up a tremendous finale because the implication is, of course, that it will be Mary Louise on the stand. We're going to talk more about that. But before we do that, I want to do a brief pick aside. There are a lot of unfun things to fight about on this episode, and there's one really fun thing to talk about on this episode, or fight about on this episode. So we're doing that one. And we alluded to it earlier, but it's about Corey. It's like, can you trust Corey? You still do, and I think that's madness. Madness!
Well, what do we mean by trust? So we're not, I want to be clear, we're not talking about whether he's a cop, necessarily, right? We're talking about sort of this, is he
I'm
someone...
talking about all versions of the definitions of the word trust. Yeah. That's what this show is about.
I think that he has done nothing wrong.
Okay.
Let's start there. What has Corey done that's wrong?
Well, number one, when someone says that they don't want to spend time with you because you have spoken to a cop about sensitive personal information and they don't feel safe, then you should probably respect that person's boundaries. And that's any person, not to mention a person who has gone through as trauma as severe as James.
I will say we don't know what Corey actually told the cops. He said they know this stuff. He didn't say that he told them.
I don't know. I don't think he should be there. Again, not a legal expert.
Well, I think,
but I don't know that I would go into the police station.
Yeah, I just
don't tell people stuff unless you have to.
I don't know.
That's the number one rule.
I am like the person who, like, if the second, like, an authority asks me to do something, I'm like, oh, yes, sir, yes. Yeah, like, so I would definitely be like, yeah, absolutely. No one did. I didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, okay, let me talk to me. I'll tell you everything. So I relate to that. I also think he has been unbelievably, like, gentle and patient and everything you would want out of a partner with Jane this season.
Sure, but why?
We have been... Because he loves her.
Or maybe because he's trying to get information. Why is he so persistent after he got found out and Jane is like, no, leave me alone?
Because he likes her, he wants to be with her.
Or because he's been working this source for however many months.
So you think he's a cop?
I think he's a cop. Maybe I think he's in conjunction with a cop.
I think
he did actually say to Jane, I'm not a cop. Like in the first 5 minutes of this episode, which was like also a blow to my theory. But
I think that, yeah, right. Well, I guess an undercover cop has to say I'm not a cop. It's like kind of the central thing. This whole season, we've been wondering what happened to Tom.
Oh my God.
And no, I don't think...
I'm so angry about Corey, I forgot about Tom.
I don't think Corey killed Tom and he's not living beneath Corey's surfboard or whatever. I do think that the reason why the show got rid of Tom and added Corey is because they wanted someone who had uncertainty around him. Because we never would have believed Tom's a cop, or that Tom had any mystery around him, or could be potentially untrustworthy, you know, or like come between the women. We're meant to believe those things about Corey just because he's a stranger in their midst, like, right? Like that is his function on the show. That is why they got rid of Tom, I think, is because they wanted a character like this, a mysterious character.
Yes.
I think it's a red herring.
Okay.
I just think at this point, given that we have one episode left.
Listen, this show does a lot of things in an episode, okay?
I do think, like, because there's so little time left and, like, it would not make sense to have this whole, like, that be kind of a revelation. And I also don't think he is going to, if, let's say he was a cop this whole time, I don't think he would succeed in, like, whatever he's out to do or convince Jane to, like,
if I put on my sensible hat, I'd probably agree with you that he's not a cop, but I don't think that they should end up together.
Really?
Yeah.
Just because of the boundaries thing.
Because of the boundaries. Because, like, and this is Jane's case in particular. Boundaries are important in all relationships. Just some free advice from me to you. But especially in this type of relationship, he is not respecting kind of what she needs. And I think part of this is understanding. This show is about each woman understanding what position they need, situation in life they need to be in for themselves.
I just think they can't all break up with their guys.
I don't think Madeleine's going to.
No, I don't think Madeleine's going to, but I think Renata will. I think Bonnie should, right? Celeste, obviously, not a situation there. I just want Jane to be happy, and I think he does.
I think she will be happy. This was step one, and then she'll keep moving.
Possibly, yeah.
Okay.
But I think he's a good person, who, by the way, in terms of like some of his awkwardness and the social decisions, he says, like, I'm on the spectrum, I think, earlier on, or there's some sort of, like, he has some issues there, I think, right? I don't think he comes out and says he has Asperger's or anything, but they hint at some, so he, you know, maybe he just has a hard time.
I guess so. On the flip side, he talked to Detective Quinlan. So, in conclusion, Corey is an emotional, if not a literal cop. If you're just joining us, this is Big Little Live in partnership with Buick. It is time for Detective Meryl, and we are joined today by The Ringer's very own criminologist, Chris Ryan.
I don't know, I did not complete law school. It was an extended night program, and there was some controversy about some of my behavior. But I will say that I've probably watched Michael Clayton more than anyone else at this company.
That's true.
And shout out to Mary Louise's lawyer, Dennis O'Hare, the actor, last seen in Michael Clayton vehicular manslaughtering someone and being like, the guy was running on the street! Remember that?
No.
Yes, I do, actually.
He's the one who's like, I need a miracle worker. He's like, you need a janitor.
Okay.
Yeah.
What an arc for him, from criminal to lawyer.
That is my bona fides.
That's great. So you're here today to help us talk about the central mystery and the legal case and the Meryl of it all, because like everything's coming together. We've been waiting all season for, are they gonna get away with it? Are some certain Mary Louise secrets gonna come out? Like what's Detective Quinlan up to? And I think finally in this penultimate episode, we at least have some guesses?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you guys alluded to this. I thought that the last shot was like probably my favorite shot of the season so far, which is because it's essentially like, did Mary Louise get trapped or did she trap Celeste?
Yeah.
Ooh.
You know, did she want Celeste to show herself? I mean, how much more exposed can she really be than when she was being interrogated on the stand? But at the same time, I felt like there was some kind of smirk, like Mary Louise was like, gotcha.
Really? You feel like at the very end there, when she's wearing her red scarf and...
Yeah, and she's sitting there and she's like, I wanna interrogate her, I wanna put her on the stand, I wanna be my own lawyer. Like that Mary Louise is like, that's exactly what I wanted.
She played herself, she's
gonna
look
insane.
Interesting.
Because that's what I was gonna ask both of you, was this Mary Louise's plan all along? By which
so?
I meant, is the custody, was she the custody battle to try to get Celeste on the stand to reveal like the Perry simulation, all of that, hiring the
That's something we've been debating. Like, what was Mary Louise's goal? Was it to get the kids, or was it to figure out who murdered Perry?
I think ultimately it's about who murdered Perry. I think the kids are an extension of Perry's legacy, and she wants them as the same way that she would want to bring Perry back. But I think the brilliance of Meryl's performance this year is that we never actually know how smart she is, or how sort of conniving or manipulative she's being, or whether or not she's just this awkward woman who's dealing with her grief, or both. They can both be true. But I really did think that last shot was just so mysterious, because it's just like, what could she get out of basically having Celeste be on the other side of that witness stand and having her ask questions? Could she provoke her into losing her temper in a way that the judge would be like, man, she really isn't a fit mother, or something like that? Or is she working in cahoots with Quinlan, like we kind of maybe allude?
Earlier on, when she has a meeting with Quinlan, we don't see what happens next. So Amanda and I have long kind of wondered, did Quinlan say, hey, let's team up together? Here's the thing, why I don't agree with you about Mary Louise being thrilled about the final turn of events. She was up 28-3.
Yeah,
like that was going her way.
Can I ask what reference that was, just points-wise?
Thank
you.
The Patriots were up the Falcons were up 28-3 in that one Super Bowl.
I remember. I watched that. That was not good from Atlanta.
She just had to play prevent defense. All she had to do was guard the goal line.
Run the ball, Mary Louise.
It's like, and she would have been fine. She would have been fine.
Yeah, I'm really glad that's no longer a Seahawks thing, and now we can do the Falcons thing there personally.
Well,
but
did you guys think that at the end, was the judge about to award Celeste custody?
No.
So you don't think that was a self-inflicted wound? You thought Celeste kind of sensed...
Yes, I thought Mary Louise was going to get a W. Right. That's what I'm saying. You guys don't think so? You thought Celeste was going to win?
I thought that the judge's reaction to Celeste saying that was kind of like, you don't have to do this.
Well, I think that was more like, don't represent yourself, crazy woman.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I was like, almost like, you shouldn't do this. I'm about to give you what you want.
I didn't think that at all.
Oh, interesting. I thought that she was just trying to be like, you're not in a position to do this. And I think it's also a judge's responsibility to kind of warn anyone, like it's probably not in your best interest to represent yourself. But I did interpret the second day of the second hearing and the interaction between the judge and Celeste as being more favorable to Celeste.
She wanted back a little bit.
And I thought that she was, trying to understand and that Celeste gave a good enough performance. My understanding is also, and again, as the legal expert that I am, I have no idea, but that it has to be really extraordinary circumstances for kids to be removed from the home. So I don't know whether...
What's her name?
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, Nicole Kidman's lawyer certainly doesn't seem to think that.
Right.
Kate's getting dunked on left and right.
That's true.
Kate is like the Kia, and everybody's just jumping over her and dunking on her.
Such a bad lawyer.
I don't think her Yelp reviews are going to be really good after this. I would say that it does seem like within the reality of the show, I have no idea what the reality of like the California
how hard it is
system, like
to
legal
wrench
system
someone's
is.
children away from them.
It seems like Kate is telling Celeste, if you take the deal, you split custody. If it goes to the judge, it's going to be one way or the other.
Hey, you got to get those billable hours. Keep it going.
I know.
Here's the thing. If Chris is right and Celeste was going to win, right? I do think there's some merit to the notion that her putting Mary Louise on the stand is not necessarily strategic. It's not about winning this legal battle. It's about winning the emotional battle.
Right.
And finally forcing this God-forsaken woman to confront what she's done.
It is also a basic TV strategic decision, which is if you have the opportunity to give Meryl Streep a 20-minute courtroom scene in the finale of her show, you better do it.
Yeah. So long.
So this is interesting because I think we all have like slightly different expectations about what's actually going to happen. Because I watched it and I saw the glint, I interpreted the glint differently, and I was like, oh, okay, it's Raymond time.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's Raymond time.
Yes, and it's Raymond time. And that's when I throw it to my colleague, Mina, and Mina made this herself, everybody. Yeah, I guess So Mina, what are you thinking?
She's thinking she's a wizard.
Yeah, okay.
Hershey kiss. I'm like the Raymond of the Teletubbies. I'm the one who didn't make it. So here's the thing.
Was there a Teletubby who died? What?
We never found out because
R.I.P. Telly T, you didn't make it here.
Unlike Mary Louise, no one got put on the stand.
Warn you till we join you.
Okay, so all this entire season, Amanda and I have speculated Mary Louise is hiding something as it pertains to Perry's brother, Raymond. At one point, I did suggest he
Liven it up a little bit. I tried to see the humor in it.
At one point, the humor was that I said he was Tom and that he was secretly living, and that's why he's been gone this whole season. But no, he's dead. Probably. So the question is, what happened to Raymond? What happened to Mary Louise? We don't know.
Right.
I believe that Raymond's death was not an accident.
Okay.
I believe it was
not an accident.
Well,
or is it like a Perry-style accident?
It wasn't a harmless accident. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I don't believe he fell off a boat or whatever.
Right.
I think somebody's responsible.
Okay.
And I think it's either the husband. Increasingly less, I think it's more likely it was Perry, because I believe this whole time Mary Louise has known her son is a monster.
Right.
She raised a monster, and perhaps it was the dad and he was abusive and she's hiding that as well. But I think this is going to be
that he's like
Celeste's
a Damien
opportunity.
Omen 5-year-old killer.
Like Macaulay Culkin in The Good Son
Okay.
is what I'm thinking. Pushing him off the highway.
Do you guys think that Mary Louise could be responsible for Raymond's death in some way, and that she is the source of all this
Because
trauma?
then also remember that we learned that Perry's father left after the accident.
Right.
And so, I mean, maybe she's just in a cover-up situation for Perry and he doesn't want to be a part of it anymore. But she says he blamed me for the death. So possibly it's because she had something to do with it. There was one scene between Mary Louise and Celeste, and it's when Celeste is talking about how great Madeleine is, and she's like, she saved one of the boys from drowning. Don't you remember that? And Mary Louise goes, where were you? And you're supposed to take that as a referendum on Celeste's motherhood, but there's something about drowning on this show, and there's something about the cut after that scene that I'm like, I'd like to know more.
Yeah, right. Well, I think that there's an element of, so what's Celeste's counter move here, right? Because Mary Louise has obviously had her under surveillance for the last few weeks of whatever this time period has been, at least, right? And then, so Celeste's counter move would obviously be trying to mine whatever moments she finds to be disturbing that Mary Louise did. Now, a lot of what Mary Louise did is right on the edge of like, this is weird, but it's not quite improper.
Not
or it's not quite
diabolical.
It's not. It's an objectively disturbing behavior. It's more just like I moved into town without invitation, basically, and stuff like that. So I'm really curious about what Celeste thinks she can get out of Mary Louise on that stand. What's the I ordered the code red moment that she thinks is coming? Because if I'm Mary Louise, if I just sit there and be like, "You're a bad mother." And I'm just gonna sit here and just keep it to that.
Right.
I win.
Or my son died in an accident. It was very tragic. I moved on.
Well,
I think Celeste wants to basically hold her accountable for the person that Perry became. I don't think she knows what Mary Louise's role in that was necessarily, or her awareness. But no, I mean, I think Celeste, who was very, very deeply afraid of her sons becoming that person, looks at Mary Louise and sees a person who did not stop that from happening.
That's so fascinating. I really think that she's going for the history and Raymond. I think that she finally, you're supposed to see it as Celeste woke up, Celeste is back to her lawyer self, and she sees the board in a way that her lawyer does not, clearly. And I totally expect her to go for it and talk about, and maybe it is also, maybe talking about Perry and her role and Mary Louise's role in who Perry became, then will lead to, then it'll lead to the childhood stuff, right?
I
guess the question is this all a proxy war for Quinlan? Is Quinlan essentially
Detective Quinlan.
You get your kids, and I get my killer. I get my guilty conviction, which I'm still trying to figure out why this is the case of a lifetime for Quinlan.
I've been saying this. I'm like, why do they care so much?
I don't know if it is.
It was not self-defense. It was a slightly modified version of self-defense?
Right.
I mean, it is pretty high profile. It is 5 extremely people in a small community. And also, you just have to assume, because we saw the shot of Mary Louise and Quinlan watching the tape together.
They're in cahoots.
Right.
So they're in cahoots. Are they in cahoots, or is Quinlan just I'm doing this because...
we don't know.
Because I
have this mom in my office.
From Quinlan's narrative, right?
Yeah.
We know about the woman from IBM. We know she flips the lighter up and down a lot, so she's got she either quits smoking or has OCD, and she seems dead set on getting getting one of them to admit to this.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you guys are talking about twists and everything, obviously, you know, to quote Jules from Pulp Fiction, we have to keep in mind what an explosive situation this Bonnie situation is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like her sort of desire to cleanse herself and to unburden herself from all of this is probably like the twist that we're talking
And
about.
putting evidence out into the world constantly.
Yeah. So that's a good opportunity to move into Murder They Wrote, which is when we talk about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's like, what happens now? And there are so many options. I wrote some of them down. Oh, no, I mean, this is still kind of conspiracy.
No, I'm putting on my serious detective.
Because it really is. I mean, there are some obvious things that we've kind of discussed, which is Mary Louise confesses to something on the stand.
Yeah.
And then what happens as a result of that? Does that mean that Quinlan buries the case? Or does everything come out and they agree not to prosecute? Or does everyone go to jail? I mean, there are a lot of different ways that it could go.
Well, I think that, look, Quinlan, as has been established, Quinlan's only shot at cracking this case is if one of them cracks, right? There's no other, she doesn't have the evidence.
Yeah, like what Corey said.
I don't care about this lawyer simulation, which honestly looked a little bit fake to me.
Right.
Oh, the sports science?
Yeah.
The sports science.
Yeah, if you follow this angle. So she needs one of them to crack. I do think this is her shot at one of them cracking this whole situation. And if it doesn't happen, obviously just one more episode, so if it doesn't happen, it's not gonna happen. But I do think if the case ends in Celeste's favor, Mary Louise is the one who cracks, none of the women, have they even been called to this? No,
nobody else has been called to
No,
this.
which I was surprised by.
Yeah, I thought we would get like a fun montage. Like
Well, that was
them
the
saying
fear,
the same
right? That
thing.
we're gonna all be
Right.
deposed or put on the
Right.
stand and have to admit to certain
The
things.
fear, but also flip side TV making, the promise of having Laura Dern and Reese Witherspoon and Shailene Woodley on this stand.
That would be a hell of a finale.
It would be theatrics.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a Scandal style, like disco montage of them, you know. Great like courtroom outfits were robbed of. But yeah, I think if the case is resolved, I just don't see where she goes with it because again, she has to go on and then crack. I don't think Bonnie's gonna crack. I think it's been too much of a red herring. I think
that was my second option. Bonnie confesses or someone else's confesses.
Nathan.
I think Bonnie is on the verge of confessing, and I have a weird feeling that Madeleine's gonna do it.
Yeah, no, we were saying that.
Mina was just saying that, and it was interesting when at the very end, Quinlan is going back through like the photographs after the Perry incident, and they focus on
She looks at her in the courtroom.
She equally feels the need to unburden herself of this guilt that she has. It's like by copping to this, she's also like somehow like clearing the decks for her and Ed.
Yes.
And it would be too easy for it to be Bonnie and too weird because it's just like, would they really let Bonnie do this to herself? Like knowing that she's been depressed this entire time, knowing that like she's been in this precarious position. I feel like there needs to be a twist. I feel like it's a hero moment for Reese.
Yeah, I could see her taking the fall.
Yeah.
Well, I was hoping for a Legally Blonde to like striding up,
objection,
being like it was a prom or whatever.
Yeah. So I feel like we're being set up for a big hero ball Reese moment.
Oh, hopefully return to her wearing pink. She's been wearing blue this whole season.
She should do it in her wedding dress.
Have you ever worn your wedding dress after your wedding?
Absolutely not.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Me
Oh,
neither.
really?
No. I said no.
I think that's
a friend of mine might have once. Whatever. It's not that weird.
I don't even know where it is.
Still fits.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. All right. I had some other. These are just some loose ends, right? Which is that Bonnie's mom.
Oh yeah. So she heard maybe.
She heard maybe.
Single tear.
Yeah.
Does she?
Just so lame.
What has she heard?
I think she heard the whole thing.
Bonnie's been unloading on a couple of things in that room, though.
Right.
Yeah,
well, she said,
true.
"I killed you.
Interesting.
You killed a man. It was you." But so she does know what happened.
Right.
Also, related, someone finds Bonnie's journal, which is your Nathan theory, I feel, right?
The idiot theory.
Right.
Yeah.
Who's the biggest idiot on the show?
But that would be a redeeming thing for Nathan to be like, I'm throwing this in a fire.
Yeah,
like,
potentially.
or like
right.
Super wild card. What if Bonnie's kid, Sky, finds the journal and does something? They've really been establishing Sky as like the perfect daughter and the connection that she has. Like she comes and like plays some music to her on a speaker
super
tag.
wild card. What if Nathan and Corey are partners on the undercover police force?
There we go.
And it just segues right into Narcos Monterey, and it turns out this was only one part of a larger story.
Here's what I'm gonna say. A lot of things could happen in the finale. That's how this show is known for finales. That that is a great lead into our final segment, which is One Step Ahead. And we'll do some lightning round stuff as we always do, but I want to ask both of you guys a larger question, which is, what do you think that this show needs to do in the finale? And I mean that both as like the resolving the mystery aspect, but also just as a show, to close out a successful season of television.
For me, we're going to get the Meryl moment on the stand. That's a given. I don't think it's something we need. It's going to be a great performance, I'm sure. I need it to be something more dramatic, soapier, plottier than just her feeling guilty about what happened to Perry or saying it was. I need some kind of twist, personally.
So you want and he has a twin, you want like a real.
I just don't want it to be like, oh yeah, I feel guilty about my own son's death.
Right.
That's not enough for me personally. And I do think it could potentially go in that direction, and I'm sure Meryl will. I just want something, I know it's the tinfoil hat talking a little bit, but I just want something more. I want a moment, personally.
I both agree with that. I feel like that's kind of the bad fan in me, that I just want Meryl to lean into full serial killer mode. Like this shot after Jane confronts her and she closes the door and she's just like standing alone in her living room, just being like, I
love it.
What is that? And I think it's hilarious. And so as a person who just likes soapy television, I want them to lean into that.
I feel like some of Meryl's bits are like Molly Shannon's like Catholic schoolgirl character who's just like...
Oh, like putting the necklace on the mouth. Yeah.
But I do think that maybe there is a version of the show where it is ultimately just about her being a bad mother. Well, no, not about feelings. You and I have talked a lot about kind of the nuance in her performance about, what would you do if you had a son like this?
Right, yeah.
And kind of the far ugly extremes of motherhood.
Right.
And if it's that, I trust Meryl to make that performance, and it's like, I understand it, and that's responsible television, right? But there is also a part of me that's just like, let it rip.
You want Meryl to be like, killed them all.
I guess it kind of depends for me. I often think about the way people map out stories across multiple seasons and knowing, okay, where's the end point? And I feel like for Big Little Lies, it was imagined as a limited series and a one-season run, and then it was obviously like the demand was so great and the experience was so good for these guys that they came back. I don't know if they're going to do a third season, and if they did, if it would be centered around this mystery or not. But I think that what we're looking at is either, would you be satisfied if there's just emotional resolution, if not narrative resolution? Because so much of what they've been carrying around for the last few episodes is really just like the guilt and the dark clouds from what happened in the first season.
Yes.
That's not all going to get wrapped up. So are we okay with it if it's just like Bonnie's feeling better, Renata now is at peace and probably single, Jane has her emotional cop boyfriend and can move forward in a world of safety and seafood or whatever.
Right,
yeah.
And he doesn't eat the fish, he loves it.
I know, and Madeleine, he just like digs into the kelp or whatever. And then Madeleine and Ed have like trust, finally.
Yes.
Even if that also means Madeleine is gonna go star in the sequel to Eastern Promises because she takes the fall for Perry's murder and she gets starred up.
That is what I want more than anything in this world. Yeah, you're talking about like a resolution where there's no murder, there's no twin, there's no drowning, there's no like incredible revelation. I think it's possible. I do. And I would be happy with most of it, but not with Mary Louise.
Yeah, Mary Louise is really...
That's the X factor.
I agree with that.
Because they made her a horrible actor
I need more than... Yes, she's Kathy Bates in Misery in the beginning. She's like... We were at the very beginning of the season, we were talking about how the different genres that are encompassed in this, and she brought a horror element to this show, and I want a horror ending.
And it's just also basically they introduced a new character and a whole situation and drama into the season. There needs to be some reason for that. Like, I don't want it to just be like, well, and then everyone reflected on themselves. This show still is a soap opera, even if it does it usually with more nuance.
I want blood.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I do that too.
Not like literal, but she's been so freaking annoying. Yeah. Like, so infuriating.
Well, you might get legal blood. You might get your Code Red moment. You might get I just don't know what it is because Mary Louise has been relatively straightforward about what she wants. And she's been really good at provoking responses in other people.
Right.
But then often seems almost surprised by those responses, where she's just like, I'm just telling the truth. I'm just like confronting you. Brought me over for tea. I'm telling you, I think your house is empty.
But you don't buy
Yeah,
it.
but don't you think in this last episode, I mean, you even identified in the last shot, there is an extra glimmer behind it of like, haha.
Yes, I get to
played into
recreate my
hands.
family. I went from having 2 sons, now I have 0, now I'm gonna have 2 again. I replaced them.
I don't know. I still don't think she's excited about testifying. I don't know.
I just meant that there is some sort of plan and recognition, that the manipulation, as opposed to her just being like, oh, I didn't know what was going.
Right,
you were going to react that way.
She's no dummy.
Yeah. All right, we can do some of the smaller things, and maybe we'll come back to this. Some other questions. Will Bonnie's mom wake up?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think so.
You do?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
She seems like she's getting there, right?
It would be an interesting theme to introduce, like basically in the last 2 episodes of the season, where to talk about what you do when a family member is in that situation. This has not been a show about like healthcare and like parental. Right. I mean, it's been a show about parents and kids, and so maybe there is that theme, but it seems a little far afield to introduce that. Though on the flip side, we thought someone was going to die.
I think that Bonnie's been able to achieve her resolution without her waking up. The moment where she says all of that is clearly what they've been building up to. I don't really see what else she needs to do with her.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the interesting themes of this season is Celeste kind of identified when Mary Louise walks into the trial in the first, or the court proceeding in the first place, and she's just like, we're still a family, and she's like, we're not a family, is like the definition of what a family is at any given moment, and ultimately the family is this group of friends, and everybody outside of that is pretty, like they're somewhat replaceable.
Yeah. Okay. So I wrote down, will Mary Louise confess? Though I did not specify to what or in what capacity. I clearly was imagining Raymond, but I guess will there be some
dark
code red
secret
moment on the stand?
It's the only way any of the secrets get out, which is why I think it's
gonna happen. You got Meryl Streep.
I agree.
That's like, come on.
Yeah. I mean, I hope so. I basically think it's malpractice if you don't make her do that.
Yeah. Yes, and she can't continue to be the same character she's been this entire season.
Right. It's like having like Dave Chang in the kitchen and be like, no, just make chicken nuggets,
I agree. Will Renata leave Gordon?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think. Well, no. Well, okay. Look.
Gordon's
unless she orchestrates some like, here's my
Here we
redemption arc, and public-facing redemption
Yeah.
story, and I need Gordon to be a part of it.
And I think that's enough for Renata, by the way. That's her arc as a character. Like this, we've been talking about her backstory, her wanting to provide for Amabella, give her the life she doesn't have. Her realizing that as she's in the beginning, she says, women stay is what we do, that's actually not true. I think that's enough for her as a character.
I agree.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get some funny quotes.
Yes, I agree. Will Jane deal with Corey?
What does deal with mean? Do you mean like...
That sounds really dark.
Do you mean like take him to go get cannoli, like the Godfather way of dealing with
She's going to do what she did to Tom. Where are you, Tom?
That would be great if Tom came back to deal with Corey.
You're going to have to accept the fact that Jane and Corey are definitely getting together.
I just want more for her. I want more for...
He's so cute.
It's a public beach.
Cute, and it's nice. It's nice that he was...
That's a great point.
It's nice that he taught Ziggy how to surf. Yeah. I just think, they've learned what they can from each other, and he's learned far too much from her, frankly, and then shared it with the police community.
We don't know that.
And then he needs to move on.
Wow.
She needs to move on.
So Quinlan brings Corey in, and she's like, you gotta
tell me. I made my feelings on this
everything about these ladies.
Why
and he's
Corey?
Just like, look.
Also, wait, why would Corey be questioned and no one else in their lives? Why none of their husbands?
The rest of them noticed it, no thank you.
And Corey's sent back to be like, I'm here to tell everybody that the deal is for one of you. Like, that was a big line. Like, I think that she was like, the first person who comes and talks to me
Right, so she was using him as a messenger vehicle to convey that.
Yes. If you mean deal with Corey by falling in love and happily ever living in a
with
aquarium
the messenger from the person who's investigating her?
All right.
Great. What a happy ending
Don't
for
think
Jane.
we're going to get a ton of Corey in this finale.
This is the last one. Yeah, this is the last question. This has been the question all season. Will they get away with it? And what is getting away with it
Right,
mean?
yeah. You think Madeleine's going to take the fall.
I don't think that they can go forward without somebody saying this is actually what happened that night.
Publicly.
Yeah, and I think that getting away with it will be like, now that you've told us, that's all you have to do is just tell us that like he came charging at you guys and somebody like helped him down his way down the stairs.
What is that even like? What does that carry? Like a year of probation?
I mean, I think that's always been their thing. Is like once we committed to the lie, we couldn't get out of it.
Right.
Even though it's probably not that much like a punishment.
I mean, there's some good lawyers in Monterey. Maybe not Kate. Maybe they get Dennis.
Get Mary Louise's lawyer.
I hope she's.
Kate's like, I'm just not going to say anything until you get your sentence.
Well, but I think from a narrative perspective, there is a potential for two huge emotional resolutions in the show. There's whatever Mary Louise confesses, and then there's whatever happens with the crime. Because I do think that they're separate at this point.
Yes.
Right? I can't imagine the entire episode is just the Mary Louise confession.
No,
it's not really.
not.
It's not a show about Celeste's custody of her kids. It's about these
that
women
is a
dealing
vehicle
with
to
What do you think?
these larger issues. I do think that we will get a resolution as an audience. I will be mad. I will be actively mad if it just sets up for a season 3 and there's no resolution, because that's just not how I understand this show and the pace of this show. It really just has been building to this.
You'll be even madder when it's all about Nathan and Corey.
Yeah, that's true.
Aquarium cops.
But I don't know whether the resolution is one of them going to Quinlan and it all kind of going through the legal system in a kosher way.
Someone like Nathan, is like, what if he is the one who reveals it? Like, would that be
He just seems too selfish.
And who is he revealing it to? Is he revealing it to Quinlan?
No, I guess he wouldn't do that. He would approach Bonnie.
I mean, I essentially think what's going to happen is that Mary Louise is going to confess to something on the stand that then makes them Quinlan drop the rest of the investigation, because it seems like Quinlan's investigation is really driven by Mary Louise.
Right,
like,
but if Mary Louise says, I then drowned my first
I'm a killer
son,
too.
Right.
It's just kind of like, we're just gonna back away from this.
The thing with the Nathan thing, which is I think is like a cool idea, is that based on the sports science that they show at the court, like they obviously have zeroed in on the people who are standing at the top of the stairs. One of you pushed him.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it
can't be like a ringer coming in out of nowhere.
I guess like somehow for Madeleine to have to take the fall, as we talked about, somebody would have to be either on the verge of cracking, and she would have to
that's what I think is gonna
come forward. Probably Bonnie, I guess, because Nathan finds the notebook, brings it to Bonnie. Bonnie almost cracks. Madeleine which would obviously be a nice kind of coming full circle.
And Madeleine can't move forward with Ed without being honest. But if she's honest with Ed, Ed is going to be like, you have to tell anyway. So it's like almost this performative way of making it up to Ed.
Why are the men so involved in this, is what I have to say.
I mean, look, you wind up in a couple of diaries, you get to call the shots.
That's true. I guess we will find out. We have one episode left. Chris, thank you for joining us and sharing your conspiracy theories. We will be back next week after the finale of Big Little Lies. It's all happening. This has been Big Little Live in partnership with Buick. Thank you so much for watching.